can start with Dr. Russo. And I don't want to give too much away about her story, but currently she is at the George Washington University of Health Sciences and has been participating in global neurosurgery since 1988. And without further ado, I will just let her talk and really tell us about her.
Okay, well, it's really a pleasure. We have nearly 80 people on the call, and it's a pleasure for me to be with all of you, in particular with my esteemed panelists who are not only colleagues but also personal friends. We work together well and frequently, and for those who are students, which I gather are most of you on the call, I'll say that the reason why I of time, as many people in medicine have found when COVID struck with us, is that our lives were upended. And those of us who spend a fair amount of our time doing electives found everything was changed. And so we who are in neurosurgery first looked at our residents and were concerned that they were not going to be able to get education, but the departments and the professional association very quickly ramped up and everything online in a week or two, so that I think Sandy commented on this, but we really feel quite good about the amount of education for residents, for fellows, and the continuing medical education that I know that I've read a lot by attending seminars and webinars in these last 2 months. But one area that we saw was going to be a problem was the lack of access for medical students to neurosurgery. Could see that with departments going online, with people being placed into other areas of the hospital, medical students having been by AAMC regulations pulled out of the out of the hospitals. We are very concerned about how are all of you, all the bright young people who are the future of neurosurgery, how are you going to stay interested or further their career? So we did a survey that I think probably both of them will talk about. The preliminary results were published in a letter. Dr. Garcia is the author of that, and maybe she'd like to talk a little bit about that. If you want me to get into more personal things about, maybe we could do that after we focused on our attendees a little bit. Dr. Garcia, would you like to say anything about the survey that you and Dr. Lam and our other colleagues reported on this?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I want to thank Caroline for putting this event together. I think the connection's pretty choppy for a lot of folks right now. So I think we're trying to work on that. So apologies for people who might be kind of moving in and out of, the audio. But I am Roxanna Garcia, and I am a neurosurgery resident. I'm about to enter my final year at Northwestern. And when I returned from my international research site back in March, which I'll talk about shortly, I helped pilot, construct, and launch a survey that basically was a national survey trying to really get a sense of what medical students who are in the pursuit of careers in neurosurgery are trying to accomplish during the pandemic and what support they need during this time. And so we were able to get close to 400 participants from all over the country and actually all over the world, although the international group which was much smaller than the national group. But it was a really wonderful experience, and it's clear that there are so many of young trainees who are in the process right now of trying to really excel and move forward with their career planning and development, and just trying to really optimize whatever activities and events they can participate in. So I'm incredibly grateful to be part of that team, and also I am also hopeful that people are, following us on social media as we try to get more and more kind of traction to share resources and events with you guys. But I think this is one of many that I think are contributing to trying to keep you guys connected in meaningful ways so that you can continue to think about how to build your careers. Because as many of you know, the application process to neurosurgical residency is a pretty competitive one. And many people spend up to 2-3 years just preparing for that process alone. So in the setting of a pandemic and all of the consequences that come with that, we're trying to really support you guys as much as we possibly can through our virtual methodologies that are kind of really taking off right now. So I'll hand it back over to Dr. Russo, and happy to talk more about my own experience within my own training and development.
Caroline, now that you have this slide, do you want us to give a little background, or did you want to introduce us? However you'd like to do it best is fine. And I also recognize we can get Dr. Lam on board, but I think we might have lost some part of her connection. There she is. So Caroline, would you like us to go over our own who, what, where would you like to do it yourself?
Yes, so I think that we will, why don't we start with our career paths, and Dr. Russo, if you would like to start, and why don't I give just a proper introduction to you. And so for everyone who's joined us on the call, I think that we have our steady amount of participants. Dr. Russo is truly a leader in global surgery, and she has worked with so many different international associations and federations, including the World Federation of Neurosurgical Societies, G4 Alliance, and Foundation for International Education in Neurosurgery. And she is currently serving on the World Federation. Excuse me, I lost that. She's currently serving on the World Federation of Neurosurgical Societies Liaison to the World Health Organization. And so without further ado, Dr. Russo, we'll hand it over to you to tell us how do you get there?
Well, thank you very much, Caroline. And like the rest of the panel, I'm really just delighted to be with you, with the Northwestern GSSA chapter, and with everyone who's on the call. I reviewed the list of attendees. I recognize a lot of the names that I'm very happy about. You had asked us to go over a few things that have common interest, so I'll be happy to take your lead. Some general career questions you had with how I know I wanted to go into neurosurgery, and that's easy. I saw my first craniotomy and I was hooked. I was actually not at medical school at the time, but I was working as a nurse and signed up to go to medical school and never looked back. So I went to med school to do neurosurgery and really never once questioned it. I truly love what I do. When asked what is the most important aspect of global surgery for students to know about, I would would say that it's being sure that you have a very solid foundation in the neurosurgery part of it before you go to the global part of it. You want to be someone who has solid skills and knowledge, and that's what you bring to the international arena. So you want to have very good clinical skills and knowledge background. Now, if you have a subspecialty area, and we'll hear about Dr. Lam, which is pediatrics, which is great because that's 40% of our patients in the developing world. But if it's like mine, which is a cranial base and microvascular surgery, it's a much narrower slice of neurosurgery, and it also tends to require high-tech equipment. And so most of us who do global work also have developed a second subspecialty, if you will, in trauma, because that's such a big part of neurosurgery throughout the world. Fully 50% of neurosurgical operations done worldwide are done for trauma. So if one is interested in trauma, that dovetails very well for career in neurosurgery. There are a lot of other details we can get into, but why don't we pass it around to the others as well. I'm quite eager to answer questions and make this valuable for the people who are on the call.
Great. Thank you so much for telling us a little bit more about how you got hooked on neurosurgery. I think we will pass it off to Dr. Lam. And just as a brief introduction for Dr. Lam, she is a pediatric epilepsy surgeon, cerebrovascular surgeon, and craniofacial surgery with expertise in minimally invasive surgery techniques and the development of multidisciplinary patient-centered clinical programs. Her academic program is based on health services research with aspects of quality improvement and outcomes research, and uses big data analytics to understand and improve healthcare utilization and delivery. She really focuses on health policy, advocacy for elevation of pediatric health, improved access to care, and advancing pediatric neurosurgery. She's been contributing to building a sustainable global pediatric neurosurgery service and clinical training collaboration in Kenya, along with other international neurosurgery efforts in Asia. So Dr. Lam, hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I'm really grateful. I was invited to be on this panel. So I think this is wonderful that there is such interest and passion for being a global citizen and developing careers in global neurosurgery. I mean, obviously, all of us here are very dedicated to it and have an interest and spent really a lot of time and effort into it. And I guess this is good that I'm kind of the middle panelist, because I can share that I got into this pretty much as an example of backwards career planning, I guess. I didn't, so if you don't have a completely laid out plan for how you're going to do this, it's okay. So I can tell you that really, I can't echo enough Dr. Russo's advice on being a very well-trained and very well-prepared neurosurgeon, because I think that is really the crux of being able to contribute no matter where you are in the world. I recently gave a talk at the American Society of Pediatric Neurosurgeons on how best to prepare for delivering neurosurgical care in low and middle income countries. And really my conclusion, I went through this big checklist, and I wanted to say, well, it's this, it's that, or bring this or bring that, but it's not. I really concluded that you can't, like you can't truly prepare for everything and the best way that you can prepare is to bring a lifetime and a career of experience, and bring open-mindedness, and bring curiosity, and generosity. And it's really that spirit of collaboration and learning from each other, and then really bringing your experience and your compassion and your skill set, because a lot of things that you're going to see and do are very location specific, are very resource limitation specific, and so you really need to be flexible. And the only way that you can be flexible is to be able to handle anything that life brings to you, right? And anything that the patient brings to you, and that the surgical circumstances bring to you. So, so yeah, so I guess that was kind of like my main message. And in terms of preparing for that, and preparing your career for that, I think a lot of you already have a head start, and you already know in medical school, if most of this audience is medical students, you already know, which is great, because then you can really, read, be prepared, participate in educational activities, network, look for opportunities. And every time that you're given an opportunity, do it. Definitely fulfill all your promises and deliver, and do it 200 times better than anybody ever expected you to. And then you will get more and more opportunities. But you have to work hard towards that. So in terms of not planning this, and still being able to recognize opportunities, and work towards something that is meaningful to you, just always understand what you are about, because embarking on a career in neurosurgery is hard. There will be a lot of a lot of circumstances and situations where you need to know what you're about and what your core values are, so that you can pick how you're going to react, and how you're going to live your life, and take care of people, and kind of choose your path. So that's important to define who you are as you're going through this, and before you're going through this. So a brief summary, I didn't know I was going to be a neurosurgeon. I actually was a political science major. I was in tech transfer consulting, and then I was part of a startup. I eventually went to med school because I realized I didn't want to sell things for the rest of my life, even though that was really great and fun and awesome, and I learned a lot. But I went to medical school because I wanted to help people. I had some misguided years where I matched into orthopedic surgery to help people, and then I realized I could actually be a better doctor and a better surgeon and help people more in neurosurgery, and got me to pediatric neurosurgery. And at the end of my training, and at the end of my fellowship, I reached out to somebody who's now my mentor and dear friend, Dr. Albright, who was semi-retired and practicing in Kenya at the time. And I was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, as you know, as you do after you finish fellowship. And I visited him in Kijabe, Kenya, where he was a missionary pediatric neurosurgeon for a number of years. And that's when I actually saw how that brought me back to why I went into medicine and neurosurgery and pediatric neurosurgery in the first place. It was really gave incredible perspective of what it means to be a doctor, and what it means to be in healthcare, and educate people who really want to get more training in terms of working with our Kenyan colleagues, and really, seeing moms and children who need help. And also being able to share that with our American trainees, and all pay it forward. So that's kind of how it came full circle for me. I didn't mean to, but now I do, and it's a part of my life, and it's a part of my career, and I highly encourage it. So congratulations on having a head start. You're definitely, going to be much more prepared than me.
Wow. I love that both of you have two, very different stories of how you got here. And I'm really excited to learn about our third panelist, Dr. Roxanna Garcia, who I think will also share a really unique journey with us. She graduated from Cornell University, and then between 2006 and 2014 completed a variety of degrees in medicine, and then also at UCSF, and then also 2 different master's degrees at the Berkeley School of Public Health, and also through the joint medical program between UCSF and Berkeley. She is going to be completing her neurosurgery residency next June, so is about to be a chief resident, and she hopes to develop her career as a global neurosurgeon scientist in health services research, and her clinical practice will focus on caring for patients suffering from traumatic brain injury and spinal cord injury, while also developing long-term scientific research efforts on neurotrauma capacity building and testing specific therapeutic interventions throughout Latin America. So Dr. Garcia, floor is yours.
Thank you, Caroline, and just thank you to everyone who is participating and attending the session. I think the organization of the session and the thought behind it, I think is very timely for a variety of reasons. I think all 3 of us on the panel today share a lot of common threads in terms of our overall path to where we're going. But particularly, I have really wanted to kind of advocate and reinforce that one primary message that everyone should really follow is really follow your intuition and really fall in love with the thing that you choose to do for the rest of your life. So my process roughly began when I was in college, and I discovered basically public health very early on, but there wasn't really a structure through my college program at the time to really fully engage with public health and health services research. And so what ended up transpiring is I did basic science research, as most undergrads do, but happened to be embedded in the School of Public Health at Johns Hopkins. Then I ended up very fortunate in this very small program through Berkeley and UCSF, for which I got my first master's degree and did some international work in southern Mexico looking at epidemiologic surveillance of an infectious disease. And then I discovered neurosurgery in between what would be the equivalent of my MS3 and MS4 year. So as I think about kind of the pandemic and everything that's happening and kind of the fortune that I had at that moment, if I didn't have that clinical exposure, I don't know that I would be where I am right now. And so I think everyone here is really trying to advocate for you guys and make sure that you're getting enough interaction and inspiration to follow your intuition. If neurosurgery is something that you absolutely are fascinated by, love, and feel passionate about, then you should full-heartedly pursue it. And I encourage you, and I will say this because after I finished my medical degree, I went back to the School of Public Health at Berkeley and did a master's program for 2 years. And had, a baseline insecurity like every person does when they apply to their residency position, of whether or not I'm going to match, particularly in a highly competitive specialty. But I followed my intuitions, and I could have never planned the path that I'm on now, and I could have never planned meeting all the wonderful people and mentors that I continue to intersect with, including Dr. Lam and Dr. Russo, and many others who have helped me along the way. And I hope that, as Dr. Lam says, pay it forward. I hope that part of this is also realizing each one of you has a particular role in where you stand. And I think that that has a lot of potential and power, and you may not necessarily see it in all circumstances, but it's certainly present. And so, like Caroline said, I am about to start my chief year at Northwestern. At Northwestern, we're a relatively big program, so we got 2 years for research, and I've been so fortunate enough to be part of 2 research fellowships through the NIH focused on health services, and one was international in Peru, in which I didn't actually do any operating. It was really health services research, looking at the healthcare system and evaluating on a very fundamental basis what it is and what it's doing and what it lacks and what it needs and who's working in it, and what are all the conditions that are facing these surgeons who maybe don't have all the resources that would be ideal, but are certainly doing tremendous and amazing work regardless. And so I look forward to the questions that you all have sent to Caroline, which I've seen kind of the laundry list, and there are quite a few. We kind of sifted through many of them and chose ones that we hope will be a productive use of your guys' time and create inspiration, and really encourage you guys to also post questions on the board there, and we will definitely try to get to as many questions as we can tonight. But just want to continue to encourage you to feel connected, to feel part of a community, even though we're all kind of social distancing and feeling disconnected. There are so many ways, and you guys, as a generation that you are, know it way better than we do. And I'm still, you know, technically a millennial, but I still am not as nearly connected as many of you are. So I just want to encourage you guys to feel connected, feel comfortable, and really reach out and be part of the community, because that's the only way that you will define whether or not you can belong, is by learning from the mentors that are here and the mentors that will advocate for you. So.
Thank you so much for that. So I think that through all of these stories, we've really gotten to how have our panelists, you know, discovered why they wanted to go into neurosurgery. And so I think that I want to turn it over to a question about our students and our residents. And so one question that we had was, what is the most important thing that students in global neurosurgery should know about as they start doing research or clinical work in the field?
Well, I'll take that one and to start out with that. And I think we probably all feel the same way. Sandy did the same thing that I did in terms of have a solid background in your field. You can't help others until you're really solid in your knowledge of neurosurgery. And so that's really important. And it's not all glamorous hiking Mount Kilimanjaro, right? You know, so it's a lot of nuts and bolts of learning a profession. But there's no reason why you can't do the things that you sort of aspire to do at the same time. So while you are studying for an exam or preparing for a case, you can also be connecting with people who may be in partnership with either your department, or there are many organizations. And I'll just give a shout out for those who really want to know details about how to connect. Being proactive has never been more important. And I'm going to be giving next week, in fact, a week from today, the Congress of Neurological Surgeons has a series called Virtual Visiting Professor, and I've been asked to do it next week. It'll all be on global neurosurgery, so I'll go over all the many different ways and a very granular level of getting involved. But I would say do both. Learn your skills and the knowledge that you need to do to be a solid neurosurgeon, but use all the other social skills and your emotional intelligence and your heart and soul and the things you want to do to maintain that personal thread that bridges departments and bridges continents and oceans.
Thank you. I think that we are really interested in the specifics. And then if there are things that do come up throughout our talk, whether that's future webinars or future opportunities, we'll definitely send that out afterwards. So for all of our participants, know that you'll be getting a follow-up email, and I'll ask our panelists to include some of those opportunities on there. I think we got a really good follow-up question, or a clarifying question rather, to what I first posed. And so I think that we definitely want to have a really solid base in our skill set before we go to another place or try to work at a different program. And one of our participants asked, are there certain types of programs, whether that is academic or community, that we should think about for residency if we eventually do want to do global surgery? Or do we just focus on sort of getting into the field at all and then being a great surgeon? So how is it that we navigate those waters?
I guess I can speak to that a little bit. I guess it's there's a question of why global neurosurgery and what that means to you, right? And also how you're going to incorporate that into your own life, and also kind of the relationships that you're going to build with people around the world. So, does that mean to you that you are going to be trained in a certain country, but then build bridges and collaborations with colleagues in other countries and have kind of a neurosurgical lift together, right? Do you want to help advance neurosurgery and the delivery of neurosurgery to populations, kind of what we call oases, or kind of like points of light. So if you want to do that, then it would be, are you going to move there and live there and kind of try to diffuse this knowledge and skill set, or are you going to kind of work with these colleagues over time, but visit them, and actually have an exchange, have colleagues from, a certain country come and work with you, and then you go and work with them, and then build this kind of level of trust where you kind of consult each other for difficult cases, or helping build kind of a subspecialty program, right? So I think there are different ways, of how you think you're going to incorporate this into your life and your career. And then once you kind of sort that out, then that would kind of help you choose next steps, right? So I have a colleague who was trained in the U.S., but is now actually living in Kenya with his wife and children, and takes on kind of like missionary type contracts where you're there for a couple of years at a time, and then you come back for your 6 months, and then you go back for a couple of years at a time, and then you come back to the States, if that's your home base. Or for me, as an academic neurosurgeon, I go during my vacation time, or any negotiated time that may work within kind of the construct of your practice. But my life is here, my work is here, but it's also important to me and kind of part of my work to go work with other colleagues. But where I go, I have very specific criteria that makes it meaningful for me. Okay, what I really don't believe in is I shouldn't go somewhere, operate on people, and then leave. If there's no infrastructure there to take care of the kids that I've operated on. Because that means I could have I may have caused complications, or really changed the natural history of a child's disease, and actually made it worse, right? Actually, maybe I didn't actually do good. And if I just went and did surgery and came back and patted myself on the back and thought, oh yeah, I did great, that is definitely not the thing to do. Don't do that. You're just deluding yourself. And so really, I need to go somewhere where I have colleagues who have a need, and either, you know, they're overworked and they need a break and I give them a break. But really a more sustainable thing is they really want to learn more about X, whatever it is, pediatric neurosurgery, or developing an epilepsy surgery program because they already have those skills. They've they have EEGs, they already have techs, but now they need to kind of take that next step of defining who to operate on, how to operationalize that, and then serve the community and really do a skill and knowledge transfer. And then we can actually now do, you know, webinar epilepsy surgery conferences, and then really be able to support each other's decisions that way. So, you know, something like that really kind of fits in well with me having a practice and a career here, but being able to collaborate with colleagues around the world and learn about pediatric epilepsy surgery together and kind of create lift together. So, yeah, I guess that was kind of a long answer, but it's kind of a multi-step decision tree that you have to kind of go through to figure out what it is in your life and career that's going to incorporate that globalism that we're talking about.
Thank you so much for explaining all of that. I really love some of the points that got brought up. One thing that one of our questions that someone asked was, how do our panelists split their time in between their clinical work and their US institutions? So Dr. Lam, I know that you addressed that in that answer, and I was wondering if Dr. Russo and Dr. Garcia could also explain how it is that they incorporate the global aspect into their career.
If I can just make one quick comment and then pass it on to Dr. Garcia, I'd like to define global neurosurgery. And it doesn't always involve being the person who does distant travel, but it's really a recognition that we have an additional duty as neurosurgeons beyond that traditional duty that we know we have of taking the best possible care we can of the patient in front of us. When we talk about global surgery, what we're really referring to is that additional responsibility of the neurosurgeon to be an advocate for access to timely, safe, and affordable neurosurgical care for everyone, everywhere. So important words are being an advocate. So you can be an advocate for that if you never leave your hometown, but you're saving equipment and supplies, or raising money, or giving conferences through video to people elsewhere. So being an advocate is important, and the part about everyone, everywhere. And I'll just point out that if nothing else, the global COVID pandemic has pointed out to us the disparities worldwide in our healthcare system, and that people of different colored skins have both in the United States and in Europe demonstrably higher infection rates and mortality rates than Caucasian people do. There's something we need to study about that, and we need to respond to that. And finally, I'll just say, remember, Doctors Without Borders is working in Florida right now. So it doesn't always have to be going to a remote area of the world when we're talking about global neurosurgery. Roxy?
Yeah, you know, I think I'll focus on a couple elements that I think are really pertinent to medical students and trainees, because I think that has a lot of questions. And, you know, overall, it is a process that is alive and very organic right now, as people are trying to find this work-life balance and be engaged in the global community, but do work domestically, and also have, you know, all the things that we all personally want in our personal lives. So it's a really challenging balance of activities, but I think the people who engage in more public health and global health work tend to find a community that is much kind of broader and get a lot of energy from that community. I personally, as a medical student, did not ever do any away, international rotations. And I think that that is something that a lot of young trainees who I've interacted with have a wealth of experience doing, and would encourage you to do that, particularly if you can commit at least a full 4 weeks through your own medical program to really immerse yourself. I think the longer the time that you can spend in one place really helps you appreciate the context, and really also helps you appreciate the complexity of every region in the world has different needs, has different abilities, and has a completely different network of human beings that have different capabilities of interacting. So I know that from the medical student perspective, most have been involved in kind of observerships, away rotations, and at least at Northwestern, I know that there is a body of medical students as well that participate in research endeavors, and those research endeavors can take the form of and a short rotation abroad with a mentor within your respective department of interest, be it neurosurgery or some other specialty or multiple specialties, because as you know, the context internationally often involves a lot of intersection between specialties. And then, or it can take the form of the fellowship that I just, am part of, which is the Fogarty Center, which is a whole year of supported research activity where you get to immerse yourself in a complete research project and really understand not only research methodologies, but context and all of these other wonderful things that come along with health services research and global health. So I think that there's a kind of a whole variety of things. And then, we haven't even touched on the organizations other than GSSA. Incision has a broad net of medical students all over the world who are actively connecting regularly and have many different events and opportunities to be part of if you're focused exclusively just on, surgery and trying to find your path within surgery. And then in the resident level, it's tough. I'll say that most residents are looking for the time where they get to take a break because junior residency in neurosurgery is really tough. It's a steep learning curve, and right when you think you're at the peak, you actually realize you're at base camp and you got to keep going. But most programs have the opportunity for research, and every program is going to do that differently. For me, I have always been very interested in making sure that I keep up with all my quantitative skills that I gained when I was a master's student at the School of Public Health at Berkeley. And so I was always engaged in some sort of secondary data analysis and really trying to get involved in academics and, even just attend conferences, even if they weren't related to public health or global surgery, because really our worlds are all very much connected. And then over time, I started to meet more people. I got more connected with, the community at my university. And then there were some really key people, including Dr. Russo and Dr. Lam and Dr. Momtaswarup, who opened up a lot of doors and opportunities for me. And the networks just keep growing, and I can't say enough about just being open, as Dr. Lam said, just be open and be able to work hard and show your enthusiasm, and people will invite you in. Consistency is key here, and if you are able to be consistent and reliable, even if we all have super busy lives, I totally understand that, and I emphasize, focusing on your education, being as smart as you possibly can, learning as much medicine as you possibly can, because that is going to be your ultimate toolkit for all of these other things that, will kind of paint your world. So I think that there's a lot you can do and a lot of networks, particularly now, that you can get connected with. I'm part of the World Federation of Neurosurgical Society's Young Neurosurgeons Forum. And I know that there are very young residents in that. There's a vast interest from all over the world to participate, and it's a really diverse group. So there are just lots of opportunities. And I would encourage you guys, if you want kind of more, details, reach out to any of us, and we're happy to kind of help you think through things of what makes the most sense.
Thank you. I think that, I love that Dr. Russo even backed up and said, what is global neurosurgery? What does that mean? And being an advocate and caring for everyone everywhere. And then Dr. Garcia, telling us to be open and being reliable, and allowing those opportunities to, just open the doors and invite us in. I wanted to shift to a question that we got live that someone had asked, and they said that it is really wonderful to see all three panelists are women. Can you speak to the strengths and challenges you've experienced as women in neurosurgery? I know that we're approaching the latter half of our webinar session, and I think that that is something that is so unique, to have 4 different moderator and 3 panelists here that are women. And so I wanted to acknowledge that and ask if that is a factor that you have thought about in your career.
Oh yeah. How could you not? I mean, it's an essential part of who we are. One of the questions that you asked us to prepare for, Caroline, was what are we doing to specifically help women who may want to go into neurosurgery? And in my own situation, I seek out mentees of all stripes, but especially women. They look like me and think like me. Early on, as a resident myself, I helped found a group called Women in Neurosurgery, which happened in 1989 when there were 8 women residents at our annual meeting, and we decided together, and now 30 years later, we're an official section, we're a national, we're celebrating our 30th anniversary, and we've had speakers, Sally Ride, and at our annual meeting. So we've made a remarkable difference, I think, by having an underpinning of women who meet together not only in North America, but around the world. So there are WINS organizations that are national and regional in dozens of other countries. I will say it's becoming increasingly mainstream. And so good news, and something I'd like to announce, is that Neurosurgical FIENS, in its March 2021 issue, is being completely devoted to international women in neurosurgery. And so those of you out there who want a writing project, get started. I'm honored to be one of the editors of that, and really delighted that such a theme would be chosen for major international journals. So things are definitely moving in the right direction, I would say. And I'm for all diversity, not just gender diversity, but racial diversity, sexual orientation diversity, religious diversity, geographic diversity, which after all is what global neurosurgery is about, right? It's sharing what we have here with what you need there, wherever there may be. So I think we're going in the right direction, and it may be that the gender diversity issue was just the tip of the spear to broaden the minds of all of us in neurosurgery to all the different kinds of diversity that that we need, because we know from our experience in every phase of life, be it neurosurgery, business, or the law, or biological systems, or even a financial portfolio, that diversity builds strength.
I guess I have um, I guess I've spent my career I guess in the startup world and then in neurosurgery, just trying to be the best that I can be. So I just want to be a really good neurosurgeon. I don't want to be a female neurosurgeon, just that I don't like see a colleague as a female neurosurgeon or a male neurosurgeon. I see them as colleagues and neurosurgeons. So I just want to be a neurosurgeon. And the day that we can be just neurosurgeons and not female neurosurgeons is actually the day that I think we should be working for. And I think with efforts like Gail's, we are getting there. But really, I want to be a neurosurgeon. I want to make neurosurgery better than the way that I found it. And that's kind of my guiding principle for why I do the things that I do. I think there's some questions about how do you incorporate that into your work and your life, and why do you have to use vacation time for it? That is also just kind of part of the practical world. And now that I run a division and the finances for the division, that is you have to kind of marry the idealism with kind of the practicality, right? So you have to pay the bills somehow. And so you have to kind of make choices for how you're going to do that. And if that means that you want to live, in the States for half a year, if that's your home, and you want to live somewhere else for half a year, you're going to have to figure out how to do that. Right. So there's just nothing free. Right. So, but you can say, well, if I want to do that, there you have many options, but don't ask for, don't ask people to like just give you things, right? You have to be really good so that people want to work with you, and you have to kind of give things in exchange, right? So either you say like one of Roxanna's mentors, Mamta, she has funding. She has NIH funding to do global surgery work. So that actually gives you what you bring to the table. You have NIH funding to actually go do, traumatic brain injury work in other countries. And that kind of gives you time to do that. You can say, well, I'm going to work here part-time and then work somewhere else part-time, and you can do locums, right? And that kind of pays your bills and does that. Or you can or you can somehow work it out with the institution where you're at, where they're trying to develop something somewhere. And kind of be part of that institutional effort where investing in a certain institution or center in another place. But really, I mean, nothing in life is free, right? But if you are resourceful, if you believe in what you're doing, if you follow your intuition, like Roxanna said, you will find a way to figure that out. And that's what neurosurgeons do. We figure things out and we do it. But definitely, you need to build yourself up so that you bring something to the table, so that when you want to do the things that you want to do, you really come at it from a place of integrity and strength, so that you are contributing rather than taking.
Sorry. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I think one last thing that I'll kind of leave this part of the conversation with is I agree entirely with Dr. Lam and Dr. Russo, but particularly in the point of I look forward to the day where we have complete gender parity and we aren't considering the number of women in any particular specialty. But the only way that we're going to get there is if we actually act as our own agents of change. And so you have to be the change that you want to see in the world. And if you can envision yourself doing something, there is room for you at the table. There's plenty of room at the table. And really the only limitations are those that, you know, you may have in your personal life for moments at a time, or, you know, everyone has dilemmas and barriers in their life. Like, that is life. That is the way the world works. And we've all overcome our own personal issues to get to where we are. But if you carry a vision, follow your intuition, and be the change that you want to see in the world, and that will be clear in the work that you do. And it doesn't have to have a label, and it doesn't have to, you know, carry a certain income necessarily. You know, I think there's a lot of creative things that people do in the world to meet their personal needs. I think in this new kind of generation of virtual space as well, we're going to see that more and more. But I want to encourage you all to really just pursue the vision that you have for yourself and being that change. Because again, I would have never, ever expected to ever be a neurosurgeon, ever. And, you know, I'll be one of few, you know, women neurosurgeons to graduate, you know, in the next coming year from a neurosurgical training program in the history of neurosurgery, you know, in the United States. But, you know, I'm not using that as my motivation. My motivation is I want to see neurosurgery be the best it can possibly be all over the world. And if I can contribute to that in even small ways by doing an assessment for someone or helping them with a project, then that is my contribution. And I feel like we are all very fortunate to be part of this community in one way or the other and get inspiration from each other. And I hope that everyone who is, you know, here tonight can continue to kind of feed that forward.
Great. I think we are running out of time, so this will be our last question. And I think it would be a mistake, you know, not to acknowledge the time that we're in and the changes that has, you know, made to all of our daily lives. And so in the midst of this COVID time, how is it that medical students and trainees can really connect and, you know, be a part of that global community? And then also, I'm going to add in, because I know that you three are all working so hard on this, how can we connect to the neurosurgery community in general? And also a reminder to all of our participants, we will be emailing these opportunities out after the session.
Okay. Well, I can start by taking a stab at that. There we go. I'll take a stab at that. So there really are a number of opportunities in terms of what can you do during COVID. And there are a number of you on the call, and you know who you are, who have taken advantage of that opportunity, who are having frequent Zoom meetings and writing projects that are spanning continents and oceans. So you're using the tools available and the questions posed during this time to advance our knowledge that enhances neurosurgery. So those things are all available. There are a number of student organizations, Incision, GSSA, Young Neurosurgeons Forums that Dr. Garcia mentioned that are present both at the World Federation and within all of our organizations. You'll be happy to know that there's a nascent movement to having boot camps like we have for our residents. You will be starting to see boot camps for med students who are interested in neurosurgery to have an opportunity to learn some skills and to talk with the faculty who will largely be neurosurgery residents. There are webinars galore. You can spend as much time as you want to interactively or listening to people at every single stage of neurosurgical training and activity. So there are as many opportunities out there as you have time. You need to be just a little bit proactive and reach out. And the people on this call have already done that because they're here.
Yeah, I can comment on a couple other, sources of information that, again, I'll coordinate with Caroline to make sure that they're concretely advertised to all the participants of this event. But there is a calendar of events that we're trying to kind of collect, all of the diverse things that are happening, including webinars and educational opportunities. Through the Brain and Spine group, which I've posted on my Twitter feed if you haven't seen it yet. And really that is going to hopefully serve as not only a resource for you guys, but a resource to report things that you guys are finding that you can share with your colleagues, so that everyone is getting the same information, and at least there's a pseudo centralized source. The other thing I will encourage you guys to do is reach out to departments, particularly local departments. They have a really important role right now to keep you guys engaged. For example, tomorrow we have an afternoon session at Northwestern with Dr. Leland Albright, and moderated by Dr. Lam, where we'll be going through some, case presentations and some didactics with him. And he is a wealth of information, and all of those things we open up to everyone who wants to participate. And so departments throughout the country all have these events, including grand rounds, for which they are able to share those resources with you guys. Additionally, I will say I've met with a number of students virtually to just talk about how they're doing, what the process is, what's going on with their life right now, how I can at least brainstorm with them how to kind of strategize what their next steps are going to be. And so I would really encourage you, as Dr. Russo said, to be proactive, because we obviously don't have the eyes to see every single one of you. But if you have particular needs and you need, connection, and you want to feel more part of the community, please reach out to us, because there is a wealth of people, particularly in the field of neurosurgery, who really want to open the doors to you guys. It just is really going to require you guys to knock on the door in order for us to open the door. So we're all, in a difficult, challenging time, but I think what we do have right now is we have a little bit more time than we usually do, even just to have a short conversation with some of you. So, I would encourage you to be proactive and really just, be part of things that you want to be part of.
Thank you so much. So I just want to open up this brief opportunity if there was anything that our panelists wanted to share with us that they weren't able to tonight. And then after that, we will end our session today. But we definitely want to keep the connection going with all of you, whether that is through GSSA or whether it's through the other organizations that we talked about tonight.
Well, I'll sum up. I'd say a couple things. One is for those who want granular information about how to get involved. Again, I don't mean to be advertising my own event, but the CNS recognized that people want to know about global neurosurgery, so that will be a large webinar next week and called the Congress of Neurological Surgeons Virtual Visiting Professor, and that will be a slide program with websites and contact information and so forth. So I think that will be helpful to those of you who have want very granular information about how to be involved. That's the first thing. The second thing I would say, watch FAANS Neurosurgeon, because one of your own, Hannah Weiss, who is a fourth-year med student starting as a first-year neurosurgery resident soon at NYU, has written an article that has you in mind that really codifies and elaborates much better than we can exactly how to be successful as a student who wants to go into neurosurgery and who has an interest in global. And then the third thing is I would just sum up with a quotation from one of my heroes, Teddy Roosevelt, who says that one of the greatest privileges in life is to work hard at work worth doing. And global neurosurgery is hard, but it sure is work worth doing. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I think we covered a lot of ground today. So I would encourage people to reach out. Carolyn, I think you can kind of be the repository of connecting everybody. But yeah, I would encourage everybody to reach out and find role models and mentors in your life that that you want to kind of keep that connection with, and they don't have to look exactly like you, and they don't have to do exactly what you think you want to do, but it should be somebody who listens, and somebody who has an open mind, and somebody who wants to listen for where you want to go in life, and try to see if they can have a hand in helping get you in that direction. And that's the type of role model or mentor I would encourage you to look for along the way. And you can have multiple role models and mentors, but I think that's very important in one's development and career. So, but I'm glad you all attended, and thank you, Caroline, for organizing this.
Yes, thanks, Caroline. I appreciate you connecting with me about a month ago, I think it was, to organize this. And I hope that the participants have gained a little bit more insight into kind of how to move forward. And hopefully, we'll follow this up with some concrete information where they will be able to get some resources. But just gonna keep it brief and just say, just try to stay connected, guys, be positive, and keep moving forward, and really don't hesitate to reach out, because we are certainly part of the community, and if we don't know the answer, we can certainly try to connect you with someone who does, because our networks are also alive and well. So just thank you again, Caroline, and all the other students as part of GSSA who organized the event. Really appreciate your guys's desire and also, efforts to put everything together.
Okay, well, thank you. The three of you have been so wonderful to hear from, and I couldn't have had a better Thursday night. And I know for some of you that might be Friday mornings and Thursday afternoons. So everyone, thanks for joining us. Make sure to look out for our email from GSSA, and we also have more webinars coming up too. So that's all for tonight. Thank you very much.